faith increases to fire attack. So they don't cross over though. So if you increase faith, you're not going to get any more damage on Night Comet and vice versa. This is one of the reasons that my stat spread is skewed heavily to the intelligence side versus the faith side, because you need 24 faith and 24 intelligence to use this weapon. But basically from that point forward, I've just increased intelligence in order to increase Night Comet's damage. That's not the only reason. Ancient Deathranker, for instance, costs a lot more intelligence than faith, but that is one of the reasons. Besides the Sword of Night's Flame, I'm also using the Prince of Death staff here because it scales with both intelligence and faith, and it also boosts damage and death sorceries, which Ancient Deathranker gets. Ancient Deathranker doesn't do a ton of damage anyway, so getting a little bit extra damage on it is good. We don't really use that spell for the damage, we use it more for the stagger and for setting up Night Comet with the sword, but getting that a little extra bit of damage helps as well. I do want to mention though that the Prince of Death staff is probably not the best staff at this point in the game because you can get higher sorcery scaling with others right now, but as you invest more points in faith and intelligence, you will eventually outperform them. So this staff is going to be your staff at endgame, so it sort of makes sense to just keep increasing it now because you'll want to have it upgraded when you get there. Besides that, I also have the Golden Order seal. This is the sacred seal that scales off of intelligence and faith, so that performs very well in this build, and it allows you to use incantations effectively as well. So you kind of get a double whammy with this build. You can use sorceries very well, and you can use incantations well, which is one of the benefits of this build. I don't use a ton of incantations. Really, the only one that I use that benefits from this is Black Flame. If there are other incantations you like Lightning Spear or something like that, you can also add them to this build. Talking about the armor for this build, there are really a couple ways you can go here. First of all, getting a headpiece that increases your intelligence is just good in general. That's going to increase your spell's damage. It's also going to increase your Night Comet damage with your sword. So this is not a bad choice. I like the in-head cap for this because it needs some protection with this build. Kind of head grab, a little bit more protection, and it doesn't have any negative effects. So it's just really good all around. Another option is the Organis pound in order to use more intelligence. However, it has the side effects of straight revive, so I don't necessarily recommend it. Additionally, you can use the Spellblade's pointed hat to increase your skill damage with Night Comet. This is from the set that drops the rock very close by flying. In fact, every piece of this armor set will increase your sorcery skill damage by about 2% or so. It's more than full benefit more damage with Night Comet. However, it's very, very light, so you'll have very, very little protection to do that. So I don't recommend it. However, if you want to get absolutely every damage out of Night Comet, it's definitely better to use. Additionally, I also like to use the Raptor's Black Gun in this build because it boosts your jump attack damage by about 10%. And if you're dual wielding Sword of the Night's Flame and you're having like an attack rating of like 900 or 1,000 or something, that when you do a jump attack, you're going to boost that by a further 10%. So that's a lot of damage, and it's a little bit heavier than giving you the Spellblade set to give you a little bit more protection, which is better for me. And for my builds, I use the Spellblade close there, increasing my Night Comet by a little bit, and then I go into heavy range for a little bit extra protection. For my talismans, I use Dragon Thread Shield Talisman +1, Godfrey Icon, Magic Scorpion Charm, and Fire Scorpion Charm. Fire Scorpion Charm and Magic Scorpion Charm increase your magic damage and your fire damage by about 10% each, but they reduce the amount of resistance that you have to damage. So that's why we have the Dragon Thread Talisman +1 to sort of make up for that. So obviously I would swap that out for a better version. That would be that one that I don't think much earlier in the game than that. Night Comet is completely magic generated, so the magic scorpion charm is going to use that, and it's also going to boost your damage with regular attacks. Some magic has that as well, and the fire scorpion charm is going to use that, and also regular attacks with some fire damage as well. And it will also boost your spells. So if you're doing, Ancient Deathranker or Magic Blade, that's magic damage, black fire damage, so it will boost it as well. Godfrey Icon is there because you use damage with cards, spells, and card skills. Although Night Comet and Flame Attack do not benefit from it, pretty much every spell I have is built is chargeable, and it'll increase the damage of these spells by about 10% if it's chargeable. So you should be charging them when you cast them if you can. There are other talismans you can use as well. For instance, the Ritual Sword Talisman increases your damage by about 10% from all sources while your HP is full. This is really, really good because you use weapon skills, you use regular attacks, you use spells with this build. However, it's definitely difficult to maintain that unless you slot something like, Blessing's Boon that gives you heal over time, or you're topping off with health potions regularly. So if you're playing predominantly ranged and you're a little bit more of a cautious player, this is not a bad pickup, but I tend to play a bit more aggressively. So if you're like an aggressive player, I would recommend this one. Also, if you did get another Sword of Night Flame from someone and you are dual-wielding regularly, the Wing Sword again is not a bad option here. This will boost your attack power all the way up to like 22% at max, where you hit over and over with level 1. So this is really good. As I mentioned, you already have crazy attack power with this sword, getting another 20% or so would be insane. So that's not a bad choice if you're dual-wield. You can also use talismans like Raven's School Talisman, which just increases your sorcery damage, or you can take things like Charging Arrows, that just increases your talisman, damage with your weapon.
Que carajo, Francisca.
Well, add your incantations because stealing on Gold Order Steel also benefits your talisman. Those are not that awesome either. There are so many talismans that benefit this build that I think it really depends on the playstyle that you're going for. If you're more of an aggressive melee type player, then there are definitely ones that benefit you, but if you're more of a range type player, then there are other ones. So you should definitely just play around with these a little bit. Or maybe you don't have them all yet, so you can use the ones that you have until you find out what you're going for. So the spells I use for this build are Golden Vow, Terra Magica, Loretta's Great Bow, Magic Blade, Black Flame, Flame Granting Strength, and Ancient Death Ring. If you don't know what Golden Vow does by now, you probably haven't been watching my videos, but it increases your overall damage by 15% as well as increasing your resistances. And those are lowered a bit by the double Magic Scorpion and Fire Scorpion charms you heal you get, but also damage as well. And that's a buff you want to keep up regularly as you're fighting around the landscape and in boss fights. Terra Magica is a new edition, and it's not one we've used in any other build yet, and it will probably be better the build. So what this does is it puts like a rune on the ground that has a little bit of a radius, and it boosts your magic damage, any form of magic damage, while you're standing inside it for 30 seconds. So that means if you use Night Comet while you're standing inside it, it's going to be boosted by 35%. Or if you cast Death Ranker, or Magic Blade, or Loretta's Great Bow, all those deal magic damage, so all those are going to be boosted as well. It's not something you'll use all the time, but it's great if you're like in a co-op scenario and you can hang back and finish things down, or the boss doesn't have aggro on you. Or you can cast it right outside a boss fog and then walk through and just stand in it and begin ranging. Loretta's Great Bow is there to give you a very long distance ranged attack. It benefits from Terra Magica, and it also benefits from Godfrey Icon, which is chargeable, so that's a really good synergy. Magic Blade is there to give you like a stable ranged option, and it's also chargeable, meaning it benefits from Godfrey Icon, and it also can give you a nice delay too, so like you can charge in with double swords or one sword, and you have these blades flying at an enemy while you're attacking, you work really well. Black Flame is there to give you a fire ranged option for when magic is just not cutting it. It does incredible damage, and it does set a little bit of a dot there based on the fact that you can give an enemy which is good for co-op and for its bosses when it wants to health. And it also benefits from the Fire Scorpion charm, and it also benefits from Flame Granting Strength, and it's just really, really good overall and you can charge it, so it benefits from Godfrey Icon. Flame Granting Strength gives you 20% physical damage and 20% fire damage in 30 seconds. This is good because the sword deals fire damage and physical, so you can increase your overall attack power when you have this up. And also for complete Black Flame is good because it'll benefit that as well. You don't tend to use it very often, but you will, just stack it before a boss fight real quick. It takes 20 to 25 seconds to the end before the first boss. And lastly, we have Ancient Death Ranker. This spell deals okay damage to this point of the game. It's definitely not mana efficient, so you're not going to use it constantly, but it really shines in fights where enemies have like a head you can lock on because the static damage that feels incredible if you're fighting a dragon, or you're fighting some sort of enemy that has a head, or an enemy that moves around is extremely mobile and hopping all over the place. The tracking on it is really good, and the movement is very slow, so it doesn't fly by the target and miss. It also tends to stagger enemies, as I mentioned in my previous video, and it gives you an opening for Night Comet. You can throw it up, and while the enemy is getting staggered over and over by each skull, you can use your Night Comet safely without getting hit. Hopefully that kills the enemy, but if not, you can just throw out another Ancient Death Ranker, and then repeat with Night Comet. And again, just like our other spells, these can be charged as well, so it benefits from Godfrey Icon. What I really like about this build is it has a lot of tools. It's got ranged attack, it's got physical damage types, it's got melee attack, it has buffs, like it has just about everything. You can add legendaries which have heal over time, or get a little bit higher base that has, blessing of others, whatever, get better heal over time. It has so many different options and things you can do, and that should help you overcome any obstacle in your path. One thing thing I also want to mention is that this build benefits greatly from using Godrich's Great Ruin and Common Overcrowd, because it boosts all your attributes by 5, and you need almost every attribute for this build. You gain damage from your spells and weapons with Fate and Intelligence. You get Mind from that as well, which gives you more MP. The weapons scale with strength and dexterity as well. And you also gain more health and quick load. So it's really good to use for this build. If you're not using it, I suggest using that one. And also something to note is that if you co-op, like if you put your sign down and you summon or summon from the summoning pool, this remains active while you're summoned. And if you die in that fight, it still remains active when you go back to your world. So if you plan on like putting your sign down and helping people with a certain boss for a while, make sure you pop one of these to further boost your stats. And lastly, one more thing before I wrap up this video. You can put your Magic Shrouded Crack tier and Flame Shrouded Crack tier into your Blaster Wonders physique to boost both of those damage types for 3 minutes. This is really great in a boss fight because you can do both of these damage types with your weapon, and it allows you to use Black Flame effectively, it allows you to use any of your magic spells effectively, and either of your flame arts effectively while you're in that fight for 3 minutes, which is a very long duration. Most boss fights don't last that long if your build is set up correctly, so that's really, really good. Stay tuned for more build guides. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do next. I see a lot of people clamoring for the Colossal Knight, so we might go that route, but I haven't entirely decided yet. We still have a lot more build guides to go. I'm probably going to be on 100 builds for another week or so before we move to 150 level builds.